What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another comic book flashback. I'm Marvel the Cross 316, and we are looking at X-Men issue number 100. We finally got to issue number 100, and so this issue came out in August of 1976. And so we see on the cover X-Men versus X-Men. We have one team of X-Men versus another team of X-Men. What the heck is going on in this issue? We're going to be concluding this storyline here with, Stephen Lang, Project Armageddon, everything that's been going on since issue number 97, I believe. And so we see right here that it's going to be one team of X-Men versus another team of X-Men. One team of X-Men here, which is the original X-Men, are claiming that these X-Men are imposters, but then there's just something screwy going on here, and we're going to find all this out. So I just hope that you go ahead and stick around because we just got a great story to look at today. This is brought to you by Chris Claremont, who wrote this issue, Dave Cockrum doing the artwork. We have Annette Kay doing the lettering page, Bonnie doing the colorist, and Marv Wolfman on the editing for this. And so let's go ahead and get started. Today's title is Greater Love Hath No X-Men. And so from the very beginning, as we've known from the storyline, that Dr. Stephen Lang, he is the main menace of this story, and his biggest goal here, his ultimate goal, is to exterminate mutant kind. So that's what he's going to try to do by having one team of X-Men fight the other team of X-Men. And just look at this artwork. I mean, my goodness, Dave Cockrum doing the artwork and penciling on this issue, and wow, I mean, look at that right there. Awesome stuff. One X-Men after another. We have Nightcrawler going up against Beast here, and Nightcrawler comes, just to know how the Beast really is. The Beast known for his acrobatic skill here. He takes on, Nightcrawler here. Cyclops blasts Nightcrawler and knocks Nightcrawler out for a minute. Wolverine sees his buddy Nightcrawler get attacked. He's been fighting the Iceman, and we see that Wolverine is concerned about Nightcrawler's health. We see the Angels swoop up. They keep calling Wolverine a midget because Wolverine, he is short. He's probably like 5'3", 5'4". He's not the tallest guy in the world, but even though his height is short, his temper is pretty tall, and so he has a really big temper, and so he's going to show this in this issue. And so once again, great fight scenes here. One fight scene after another. We see Havoc here going up against Colossus, and even though Colossus has his steel skin, he is feeling the full brunt of this attack by Havoc here. He says, "You may have turned on us at one point," and remember that's in issue number 97. Now we see that even Colossus takes down Havoc here. We have Storm. She's going up against Jean Grey. And Storm's like, "Jean, what is going on with you? Why are you attacking us? We're friends. I've opened up to you. We talked. We're just like the closest friends. Why are you attacking us?" And Jean Grey is acting like she has no idea who Storm is. And we see Polaris. She attacks Storm here. So, again, just a lot of confusion that's going on. We don't really understand why is this original team of X-Men, including Professor Xavier, who, as we see right here, we thought he was taken captive by Stephen Lang, but it looks like Professor Xavier is working with this original team of X-Men. What is going on here? And so Banshee is like, "Wolverine, please don't harm Professor Xavier." And so Wolverine, trying his best, he knows that Professor Xavier is a very powerful mutant. And then one thing we see, Professor Xavier gets up out of his chair. We know from the very start, if you've read any of the X-Men comics, for a very long time, Professor Xavier has been handicapped. He can't walk. But he gets out of his wheelchair, knocks down Wolverine with one punch. This is very uncharacteristic of Professor Xavier. We know that Professor Xavier can't walk. What is going on? So then we see Marvel Girl here. She attacks Wolverine with a mind blast. So Wolverine is starting to feel the full brunt of this telekinetic power. But one thing we know about Wolverine, as we come to find out in this issue, is that Wolverine he's like an animal, and animals can scent different people. And every person, just like if you go up to a cat or something, a cat will know the smell of a person by smelling the person. And I mean, that's how Wolverine is here. And so what do we see? We see Wolverine. He says, "You're not Jean Grey," and he slashes Jean Grey apart. And we see that Banshee is like, "What have you done?" And we see Stephen Lang here. He's like, "Get to camera 3 immediately. I need to see what's going on." And we see that this wasn't Jean Grey. This was a Sentinel that Professor Stephen Lang here, he had made, I mean, indestructible X-Men Sentinels to take down the original X-Men. That was his master plan, but we come to find out that even the original X-Men here, the real X-Men, were able to defeat Stephen Lang's robot X-Men. And so here's the real X-Men. They're being held captive here. They're in their little cells here. We find out more about Stephen Lang here, that he was head of a government project, and this project basically he was trying to determine why mutants exist. He was very interested in what mutants are, like their origin. And so part of his position allowed him to go to Larry Trask upstate in New York, where Larry Trask's base was. And if you know who Larry Trask is, he was also key to trying to exterminate the X-Men way back in the day. And so what does Stephen Lang do? He comes across a few of Larry Trask's notes about how to exterminate the X-Men by building Sentinels. So that's exactly what Stephen Lang's going to do. And then on top of that, he joins this council here, the Council of the Chosen. And the Council of the Chosen are also trying their best to see what they can do with mutant kind, but they want to use mutant kind and their powers. But Stephen Lang turns on this council, and this is how he finally comes up with Project Armageddon. So we have a pretty good origin story of how Stephen Lang was able to build all of these robots by coming across Larry Trask, notes here of how to build the Sentinels. A lot of things come into play here, and now that we see that Stephen Lang's master plan has been failed here, that it's been ruined, we see Cyclops. He busts through his cell and he releases the rest of the X-Men, including Dr. Corbeau here. And so now Cyclops is going to let go full brunt of his optic blast. We see Stephen Lang, he's trying to get away. He's going to use his blaster here to try to take down all the X-Men, but instead he just takes down all of his X-Men Sentinels. And so now we see Stephen Lang, he's trying to get away in his ship here. We see Jean Grey, she controls the ship and causes Stephen Lang to crash into the screen. And there we go, the death of Stephen Lang right there. So now Stephen Lang has been exterminated by the own people that he hated the most. And so now the biggest question is, how are the X-Men going to return back to Earth? That's the biggest problem here. We come to find out from Dr. Corbeau here that the flight control computer was damaged during the fracas with the Sentinels. And so even if they can get back to Earth, they're not going to make it because, remember, a huge solar flare is coming and it's going to cause a lot of damage to this base here. I mean, this is pretty bad stuff here. That's the main problem. He was going to use the ship, and they had this protective gear to allow him and the X-Men to return safely home, but since it's been damaged, now there is no way to get home. And so we see that there's no one here that can be able to do it except one person, and that will be Jean Grey. She's going to play a pivotal role here in getting the X-Men home. Cyclops is having none of it. He's like, no way are you going to be harmed. This is a life or death, scenario here. You might die, Jean, but she's looking out for the rest of the team. Cyclops is trying to convince her, please don't do this. She uses a telekinetic force to knock out Cyclops. She tells Banshee to take him and the rest of the X-Men into the lifeboat where they can be safe, and she's going to be piloting this spaceship. Wolverine tries his best to convince her that, what do you think you're doing? Are you trying to be like Professor Xavier and be a big shot? And Jean Grey's had enough. She says, you little obnoxious little upstart, I've tried to be nice to you, but I've just lost all my effort. Now get away from me before I really lose my temper. She tells Storm that, Storm, I don't want to yell at you two. Please go. I can handle this. And she also tells Storm, tell Scott I love him. And so we're leaving off here. Hopefully Jean Grey will not die here, but we're going to see what happens here as Jean Grey is piloting this ship here that the X-Men are on. Cyclops comes to. He's like, I gotta get to Jean. I can't leave her behind. Let me go, blast it. And so Jean Grey is controlling this, and the longer, it's an hour, 30 minutes go by, but even with 30 minutes going by, she is feeling the full brunt of these solar flares, and her powers cannot hold on much longer. So what is going to happen here next issue as we look at issue number 101, as the solar flares are starting to seep into the ship? What's going to happen with Jean Grey? Is she going to be able to survive? Are the X-Men going to be able to survive and get back to Earth? We're going to find all this out in issue number 101. Hope to see you there. Until next time, keep reading comics.